I've seen so many companies who are able to bring in even one person in some key role that's just next level, just a badass that's done this before, and they can change the trajectory of the company.
Yeah.
And it can change the mindset of the entrepreneur. Now they want more of those people around the table because they see what one badass can do for the organization.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today's guest is Kurt Wilkin, co-founder of Hire Better, managing partner of Bee Cave Capital, and longtime advisor to high-growth companies. He's a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits and has helped hundreds of CEOs scale with purpose. Known for his sharp business instincts and even sharper BS detector, Kurt brings a no-nonsense, plain-spoken style to his Texan, Louisianan, and Arkansas roots. And as he puts it, redneck, Cajun, and hillbilly rolled into one beautiful package. Kurt, welcome to the show. Let's dive right in.
I love that intro. Thanks, Rob. Excited to be here, man.
Good to see you. Kurt, let's start with this. You've worked with so many CEOs, entrepreneurs over the years. What's the most common mistake that you see CEOs make when they're trying to scale their business?
And one of the key ones is I see them try to do the same thing over and over again and not make changes that they need to make in order to scale. What I mean by that is oftentimes we hire generalists to do a lot of things that have to be done early on. Everybody has to be able to sweep the floor and sell your widget and do the accounting. But as you grow and really want to scale, you need to bring in specialists for certain aspects of that. So that's one of the biggest challenges I see entrepreneurs have is the ability to know members of the team perhaps they've outgrown and go find next level talent.
Yeah, I got to follow up to that. How does a business owner know when they've crossed that threshold? It's probably not revenue because that could change by industry and company. What's a symptom or a trigger for that?
Yeah, a couple of the ones I see is you feel like you've plateaued, like you went up and to the right, and at some point you reach a point where it's just like a glass ceiling you just can't get over. That's a common one. Another is you're constantly having challenges with existing employees that were yesterday's hero. There's a saying, and I forget who says it, but yesterday's hero is today's problem. And It doesn't mean that that hero has to go. It just means that they might not be suited for that role. So that's more intuitive, I guess. But if you're starting to see some of the same problems with your previous key employees, that's another key aspect.
Gotcha. Thanks. So the name of one of your companies is Hire Better. And I always really believe that most small and mid-sized businesses are terrible at hiring. Actually, it's one of the reasons they turn to Work Better now, one of the reasons. What does Hire Better mean to you? And I know you can probably go in a million directions. Let's maybe pick one or two. What does better hiring look like?
I think a lot of folks get caught up in, I need a body to fill a chair. And for me, what better hiring means is let's take a step back and really determine who needs to sit in that chair. What does the table need to look like? Let's be strategic about talent. And especially most entrepreneurs, we hire very reactively. So we feel desperate. We tell our YPO or Vistage friends or our attorneys or CPAs that we need a CFO. And all of a sudden we've got all this recruiters are slamming resumes against the wall and hoping something will stick. But what I want companies to do, entrepreneurs to do, is take a step back. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to build? How are you going to get there? Are you going to buy a new company? Are you going to open a new office? Are you going to launch a new product? The answers to those questions help us determine what the talent we need to have around the table is. And so once we can tell what our future talent needs to look like to get there, now we can start assessing our existing team and who has the skills to be able to get us to that next level. And more often than not, if we have a leadership team of 5, let's say, and we're growing really rapidly, only 2 or 3 of those folks are really suited for the next level in that role. We see a lot of folks who they've maybe grown through the ranks in the accounting department and they're the only person in the accounting department. So you make them CFO, but at some point they've outgrown their role. And so it's just one of the more common traits I forget what the question was.
What does hiring better look like? And of course, we could probably spend 3 days talking about that. One of the things that I heard in the back of my head is companies growing. And one of the things I always talk about, and I got this a lot from Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, is as companies growing, especially with the incredibly fast pace of change in business today, companies need new capabilities. And I have sometimes, one of the things I've seen with small and mid-sized businesses hiring is they don't think about those new capabilities. Many times they're like, well, I have so-and-so that's done a good job so far, right? And I think that's one of the things that you're getting at here, which is don't look at your current bench, but where do you want to go and what are the things you need to do to get there, and then find those people.
I think it's Marshall Goldsmith that has a book entitled What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I like to take it to the human level and say, who got you here won't get you there. And it doesn't mean, again, that these are bad people or maybe even need to leave the organization. It just means that you need that next level talent. I've seen so many companies who are able to bring in even one person in some key role that's just, I don't know how else to say it, just next level, just a badass that's done this before. And they, if hired right and onboarded right, and there's a lot of factors that need to go into it, they can change the trajectory of the company. Yeah. And it can change the mindset of the entrepreneur. Now they want more of those people around the table because they see what one badass can do for the organization.
You just reminded me of something else, which is in a situation like the one you're describing, it sounds like you bring in that person who's actually now pushing you and pushing the organization instead of the other way around. Do you see CEOs who have trouble bringing somebody in who has that ability to push them? Whereas other CEOs might say, hey, I want more of them.
All the time. And some people are able to truly make that leap and some people aren't. Some people are threatened by somebody who can do things that better. Where it gets really sticky is if you're familiar with the EOS world, the entrepreneurial operating system world, there's a concept of a visionary CEO who's, does all the crazy things and able to see the future. And then there's the integrator is what they call the person who's an operator, makes all the vision come to reality. So very strong structurally. Where we see a lot of conflict, if you will, is when the founder, they know they need that integrator, that operating partner to help them. But by definition, that operating partner is going to do things different than the entrepreneur. And so there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And there's going to be people in the organization that are used to the way Kurt did it and like the way that Kurt did it, because Kurt doesn't hold you accountable. But they don't like the way Rob does it because Rob now is structured and holds people accountable. And so there's going to be almost an organ, what's it called, where the body rejects the organ. And so it's very critical that you're able to get through that stage and be able to work together as a partnership. Same way with any other key position. The new person is going to do things differently, and you're going to have legacy employees, some key employees who may have been with you for a while are not going to like the new style. Sometimes it's style. And sometimes it's the wrong person. Don't get me wrong. People aren't always good fits for each other.
I think some of the people that have been around for a long time don't want the accountability, and you need that accountability in order to grow.
Absolutely.
That's a good segue to what role does leadership, self-awareness play in building a company that you're really trying to grow?
Man, I think it's...
You must see this all the time.
It's one of the key traits. And it's for us, we work with organizations to help them hire new people. And so if we have entrepreneurs who their shit doesn't stink, they're so good, they're the smartest person in the room, they're not good clients for us. They're also probably going to hinder their own growth, hamper their own growth, because they're not able to bring in people that might be stronger than them. But if you're humble and you understand that there are going to be smarter people around the room than you, especially in key roles, you've got a real chance for success.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said about somebody who's been with the company for a long time and killed it in the beginning, may not be the right person to stay on as the company really goes to that next phase of growth. For people, for entrepreneurs, for CEOs that don't like conflict, what's a good way to approach that conversation?
If I may, Rob, can I plug my book here for a second? Because I'll tell you a story.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Kurt.
My book's entitled Who's Your Mike? And the title character, we call him Mike. And Mike is your good friend, your good buddy. When you start your business in your garage, he's helping you with all the back office administrative things that you don't like to do and you probably suck at. He teaches himself QuickBooks. He starts becoming your accountant. You become a real company. So he is now your full-time accountant. Then you promote him to controller because that's the next logical title. And a few years later, you promote him to CFO. Now you're doing $10 or $20 million in revenue. You're a real company. but Mike's never done this before. He's doing it all on his own and by working 100 hours a week or whatever. And at some point you start having bigger company challenges. You're trying to raise $10 million. You're trying to merge with a competitor, and Mike doesn't know what he's doing. He's over his head. So the question is, who's your Mike? Every entrepreneur has a Mike, or has had, or will have a Mike. And there's countless legacy employees like that. And as I've said many times, it doesn't mean Mike has to go. But here's the key for the entrepreneur is the decision that you make with Mike comes down to your relationship with him or her, and the rapport that you built and the trust that you built, and his or her ability to have their own lack of ego, their own humility. Because if they have the right mindset, they understand that they're in over their head and they want to be part of the growth, part of the company, but they're going to be an individual contributor. In some cases, maybe Mike is a badass accountant. So let's let him be an accountant and bring in a CFO above him to allow him to either grow into that or just to do the things that the company needs. So those are the key attributes. It comes down to their mindset and your relationship and how you communicate with that person.
That's good advice. And in my experience, it's just a matter of when, right? So at some point, the owner goes, I'll deal with this a little bit longer. I think maybe he or she will figure it out. Or at some point they just go, you know what, this isn't going to work if I want to continue growing. Or maybe you decide not to grow, right? You got to realize that has downstream ramifications to everybody else in your company that is looking forward to that growth and all of the things that come along with it.
That's exactly right. If your company, if your team wants to grow and you have a key employee in a position that's holding them back, you're going to have challenges. You'll probably lose some good employees. And it's key for you to make sure you get the people in the right positions. There's different chapters, legacy employee chapters, and then some bringing people from the outside chapters, and then some cultural and other chapters. So there's 4 sections, and each section has advice. So there's an advice section around assessing your existing team. There's an advice section around hiring and all that entails.
This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for accessing high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients say that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals they need to thrive. For more resources to help your business grow, visit workbetternow.com/eguide. And if you're ready to build your dream team, head to workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to Great Talent, Great Business listeners, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult.
Kurt, I guess the way to put this is your BS detector has got some notoriety. What's one phrase or more than one phrase that you hear that immediately raises a red flag? Or maybe in the case of Hire Better goes, I don't know if this person's going to be a good client for us. What's something that comes up time and time again?
That's a great question, Rob. I think every entrepreneur thinks that their situation is special. And so when I hear things like, oh, Kurt, you don't understand our situation. We're special. You have to understand we're in a different industry. We have a different trajectory, have different clients, whatever. And that's all true. But most businesses, 80% of them are very similar challenges. We have just seen the patterns over and over and over again. So that's one. The other is a lot of folks have this mindset that they don't know how to seek help. They don't want help. And so they'll tell you they've got it covered. I consider it the blind spot theory. People don't want to know what their blind spots are, so they don't listen to you. They don't think they have their own blind spots. So those are the types of things that we'll hear. And we just don't want to work with you because we want people who are learners and not knowers.
Yeah. Like you, I've seen a lot of movies and I've heard a lot of those things. In fact, I'll take ownership here. I've probably said, this goes back a number of years, I've probably said some of those things myself when I didn't have the self-awareness that I needed. But I actually disagree with you about one thing. I don't think it's that 80% of businesses go through the same thing. I think it's closer to 90 or 95. It's really only the unicorns and maybe the next tier under unicorns that may be a little bit different. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. And for the viewers and the listeners out there, do you ever say something like that? And that might give you a little clue about self-awareness and your own self-awareness.
Yeah, Rob, one more thing. That's so true. And I would just remind everybody that they're not alone. So other people have gone through these challenges before and other people are going through them now. So find groups where you can commiserate or celebrate together and work through some of these challenges together. Just know that you're not alone. That's a key thing about business and in life.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm a member of a few different peer groups, and having people that know a little bit about your business, yet they're not part of your business. There's no connection to your business. They're not emotionally tied to your decisions or financially tied to your decisions, that have been through this before, that can provide feedback, and you can provide feedback to them, is one of the most powerful things I've experienced as a business owner.
Nice.
I want to switch gears a little bit, do something we've never done on the podcast. You and I share a friend. In fact, that's how we met, who recently passed away, Rod Kurtz. And for those viewers and listeners who don't know Rod really dedicated his professional career to helping small businesses, first as a journalist and then as a consultant. And you and I both very upset about his passing. And at the same time, what a guy to celebrate. Kurt, tell us a little bit about your interactions with Rod. I know he worked with you professionally. Just an opportunity to share a few thoughts about Rod.
Yeah, hey, I really appreciate this, Rob. Rod was, I call him a word wizard. He could take whatever I wrote, and I think it was just the most beautiful thing in the world. And he would just tweak a couple of things. It would sing like flipping magic, man. I loved his ability to do that. I've known him since maybe 2018, 2019. I've been working with him. We spent a lot of time during COVID when I was writing my book, and he was a big part of that, helping me basically as an editor and then executive producer on my podcast. But along the way, he's got such an empathetic mindset and heart that he's always looking out for the little guy, if you will. For example, we're doing a podcast and he's like, Kurt, I really want you to reach out to people of color or people that have been impacted by the flood or the pandemic or whatever, and always have a mindset for those less fortunate or less to do, let's call it. Yeah. And so I always love that about him. I've got a couple of stories I'd like to share, but I want you to get your, tell me about Rod.
Well, I probably met Rod at least about 20 years ago. Maybe I can't remember if he was writing for Inc. back then. I had my own media company, so we hit it off pretty much immediately. And Rod had this unique ability of, at the time, not being an entrepreneur himself, but really just had this uncanny understanding of business owners. I'm guessing he was probably born with it. And I think he interviewed me for, at the time, maybe he was on AOL, and just would always throw out those questions that really made you think, and resulted in some really good output that other business owners could get a lot out of. And just, of course, a fun guy to hang out with as well.
Yeah, you're right. He also, so he was the executive editor or whatever it is for Inc. magazine. He was at Amex, where they created their small business program. So he told a story on my podcast where he was, I forget the details. So if you want the details, go listen to the podcast. But the basic details are he wanted to do something with Amex. And maybe there were a big advertising deal. I'm not really sure. And in the taxi ride or whatever on the way to meet with Amex, he was thinking, well, why doesn't Amex do anything to cater to small businesses? So he, on the kind of a back of a napkin, he created a program where Amex would now be providing all this content to small business owners, which became, I think it's called Amex Online, or what's it called now? There's a program.
I don't know what it's now, but it was part of Amex Open, and there was another sub name. I actually think I helped set that meeting up for him.
Oh, there you go.
But, yeah, because he was the perfect guy for what they needed.
Yeah, somebody who understands businesses, also has the creative instinct, and also a great writer and a storyteller is probably the better way to put it.
Yeah, will be sorely missed.
He was my executive producer on my podcast. My podcast is called Unlocking Moves. And I think I stole the term from Vern Harnish or Gino Wickman or somebody. But basic concept is we all have some key pivotal moment or decision point that really changed the trajectory of our lives or our careers. And so if we can spot those things, we can maybe take them and become more successful or whatever. And he was my first interview for my podcast. And we asked him about his unlocking move. And this is the example I tell everybody when I really tell them about the concept of unlocking moves. He was a writer for Inc., and he wanted to do an article with Sir Richard Branson. And he didn't know him from Adam, but he reached out to him with a whatever call or text or whatever email, reached out, hey, I'd like to do an article about you. And everybody in the world has that opportunity to reach out to almost anybody, especially with Twitter and access to people. And Richard Branson ignored him. So he reached out again, ignored him, reached out, ignored him, reached out. This went on for 2-3 weeks. And at some point, he started emailing and letters and all these different approaches. And finally, somebody from Richard's team reached back out to him and said, leave me alone. I'm not going to meet with you. So Rod doubled down and reached out. And finally he said, fuck it, I'm going to talk to this guy. He's, got a lot of stick-to-itiveness. So he did an article with Richard Branson. I think the story of that goes, he did it on his plane on the way to his private island, and they've been friends ever since. And it really changed Rod's career in many ways. And the point of that story is we all have that opportunity. It's a matter of having that stick-to-itiveness to do it. And Rod's a great example of making his own breaks.
That is an awesome story about Rod and fits in perfectly with my memories of him. Just an awesome guy. And again, that's how you and I met.
That's right.
Rod introduced us. So one of the things Rod would do, he would, and I think I alluded to this earlier, he would just come up with those questions that nobody would ever think about. So to that extent, I'm going to ask you a Rod question, which is, what is one question that you're never asked and that you wish people would ask, or you're really happy that they never ask?
That's a great question. And there's so many different ways that I could go with this. The one I think about is anybody that knows me. So I grew up in South Louisiana, as you said earlier, a redneck, Cajun, and hillbilly. I grew up in South Louisiana, and I've been drinking daiquiris since I was, 12.
The frozen ones.
Frozen daiquiris. They're not just fruity daiquiris down there like strawberry and pina colada. There's nuclear and all these different flavors, just a bunch of stuff. But anyway, I really like the fruity ones. And so I'm now 56 years old, and I still love fruity drinks. If I go to anywhere in the beach, I'm drinking something fruity. I live in Texas. If I go to a Mexican restaurant, everyone's getting margaritas. I get strawberry margarita. It's just my shtick, right? And I love them. It's pretty embarrassing when we get to a restaurant and there's a strawberry frozen drink and there's a beer. They always bring my wife the frozen drink and bring me the beer, and we have to swap because of my fetish for frozen fruity drinks. There you go. There's a little bit about me that you didn't know.
Did not know. And now every time I'm in New Orleans, and I go every year for Jazz Fest, if not more often, and I'm walking down Bourbon Street and I'm like, who drinks all of that fruity stuff? I will think of you.
There you go, brother. It's me. All right. Hey, Rob, I wouldn't be a good partner if I didn't ask you the same question. So what is one question that you're never asked, and either you secretly wish they would or you're secretly glad that they don't?
I had a feeling you were going to do this, and I did give it some thought. The question is not popping into my mind, but as you know, and as many people know, I used to own a media company. I owned it for 10 years. It was called the New York Enterprise Report. I started in 2003. We launched the website that year, the magazine in 2004, and then the Small Business Awards, which one year, or maybe 2 years, Rod was the MC of. And this was a pretty big event. I had that business for 10 years. We had a readership of about 100,000, which was a lot for a regional pub. It was like a regional version of Inc., and I'm generalizing. We had national advertisers. We had local advertisers. Through that, I met hundreds, if not over 1,000 entrepreneurs. And I don't talk too much about this, but it was not successful. And I had it for 10 years. We talked earlier about how a lot of CEOs have blind spots. And I had a blind spot here, which is I had an opportunity to sell that business probably 6 years in. And I didn't, because I kept thinking that I could turn it around. Like I just need 6 more months to really get it over the hump, and then we're going to expand and all of that. And I never could. It was not a success. Not a lot of people know about it, because anybody who came to one of our events, particularly like the Small Business Awards, again, I think Rod hosted or was the MC once or twice. JJ Ramberg, if you ever knew JJ from, I forgot that TV show that was on MSNBC for small businesses, she hosted a number of times. And everybody thought it was just a raving success, and it wasn't. Now, that said, what it did is it really helped me get other businesses off the ground, including Work Better Now, based upon what I learned and the many contacts I have and understanding of the small business market. But it was 10 painful years.
Man, hey, Rob, first of all, thank you for sharing. Second of all, there's 2 takeaways in there, if you don't mind, I'd like to draw out. Number one is admitting that things aren't as good as they seem is a superpower. And I think the more that other entrepreneurs can see that, man, Rob's not perfect, right? And see that you went through some of the same challenges, even though things look great from the outside. There's so many of these organizations, like we talked about before, Vistage, YPO, EO, where everyone thinks they have to be perfect, but nobody is perfect. If they tell you they're perfect, they're full of crap. And the other thing was, you mentioned the challenges set you up for Work Better Now and other endeavors. That's so true. So what we're going through right now, or you are going through as a listener or viewer, what you're going through right now is going to set you up for the next phase of your career. So embrace it, learn from it, and take it and make it better, make whatever you do better, leveraging your fails and successes and mishaps along the way.
Yeah, that's great insight, Kurt. I can't stress it enough because I've lived it. And I wish that going back, I wish that I had admitted it more and talked about the struggles, because I would have gotten, maybe some really good experience shares from other people. That's a great way for us to segue over to a close. Kurt, where can people find out more about you and Hire Better?
So kurtwilkin.com is where there's a lot of stuff about me. Hirebetter.com is where you can get all the recruiting and team building aspects. And then LinkedIn is probably the best way. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to continue to spread good cheer.
Thanks for being on the show, Kurt, and awesome insights.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business, or visit greattalentpodcast.com.